Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I hope you are having an outstanding day. So today we are going to explore one of the most interesting and powerful feature recently gaining more popularity in React. So we call it as TanStack query or also known as React query. So in this video we'll dive into what TanStack is, why it is useful and how it can significantly improve the performance of your React application. And of course, we will go hands-on with a quick demo to see it in action. So before we start with the actual implementation, so let's understand what TanStack is. So basically, TanStack is a collection of powerful headless library for building scalable and high-performance web applications. So the term headless means it provides the logic without enforcing any UI, giving you a full control over the design while it takes care of the complexity functionality behind the scenes. Then let's understand why TanStack is useful or why we use this TanStack in React. So basically in tradition, so if you imagine in traditionally in React we use use state, use effect and sometimes async await logic to fetch the data from the API. But managing the server side state with the method can get messy, especially as your app grows. So this is where TanStack query comes in. So it allows you to fetch the data from the API, cache the response, handle the loading and error states, automatically refetch data when needed, and even manage background updates, all without extra boilerplate. So instead of manually handling async logic, loading state and retries, you can simply use TanStack query to handle all of that efficiently. You can even pass parameters like IDs to the query and use the response directly to the UI. So let's jump into the demo and see how it works in real world in React. So let's get started. So before wasting too much time, let's install this TanStack library. So for that we have to hit this npm install @TanStack React query. So it will download the required packages and then we'll start with this actual implementation. So I have already added the code in this app.js. So we'll explore so we'll understand the code line by line. So before that, let's firstly go to the index.js where so I have imported this query client and query client provider. So if you are aware about this, how to use this context APIs or React context, then you will understand in this context also we'll pass this data from, we'll store the data in the globally and we'll pass that data with the help of this context APIs. But in here, we'll create this query client provider, and in that query client provider we'll pass this query client. So in that we added this import and then we created this const for this query client, and we'll map or we'll wrap our app component in this query client provider. And in that we have passed this query client as a client. So let's go to this app.js and let's understand this app.js more deeply. So in this app.js I have imported this use query and access API to fetch the API. In that what we'll do, we'll call this JSON placeholder API, and that will fetch the user related data and will map this data on the UI. So for that we have created this fetch user async function. In that we have added this use query. So we have used this so the imported use query that we have used this here, and we have destructured the content like the data is loading and error. So I'll cover this. I have added this refetch, but to destructuring I have directly used this data is loading for before we fetching the data. We'll add some loading on the UI, and if any error comes then we'll directly map that error on the UI. So that's why we have used this error. Then we have used this use query hook, and in that this is the context to add the or to use the use query. So here is the query key. So in that what we have doing, we are just fetching the user information or user related data. So I've added this as a user, and we have created this query function. So I have added this fetch user function, so it will just fetch the data. But in that what we have added, we have just added some one timeout which is 1000 milliseconds. So it will load some or it will show the loading on the UI. Then we have just added this loading, so it will, if the loading gets true, then it will print this paragraph as a loading on the UI. If any error occurs, then it will print this something went wrong on. And then we have just simply mapped this user list on the UI, and we have created one refresh button. So we'll cover that on at the demonstration, or once we run the app on the local, then we'll understand this why I have added this refresh button. So let's do clear and then do npm start. So the app is starting on the locally, and if you see the app is so before loading this list, you see this, the loading is printed on the UI and takes some time because we have additionally added 1 millisecond time to fetch the data. So accordingly we have mapped this data on the UI. So in that, what happens, so we just added the data, and accordingly we have used this ease loading, because in use query there are a couple of predefined options that you can use while using this use query. So you can use this is loading, error, or pending states. So accordingly you will map this data. And then we have additionally added this refresh button to see how it works. So on the UI, if you see, once we reload the page, it takes some time. It takes time to load or to fetch the data. But if I click on the refresh button, we are just again making the API call, but we have used this as additional option in this use query. So it caches the response, and then without fetching or without reloading this UI, it just maps this data. So if I click on the refresh, you will see the ease loading is not coming on the UI. It's just fetching the data when from the cache. So basically query is cached against this key, and that's why it's fetching, or it is not loading on the UI. Accordingly you can use this feature on your web app, so it will definitely increase the performance. So in this way you guys can use this TanStack for making the API calls rather than using the traditional use state or use event. So it is very easy to use, and very straightforward to understand. So that's it. So that's it about the TanStack. So if you found this video very helpful, then don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to support the channel. Your feedback is very valuable for me to create more content. So thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, have a great